think there's too much pressure.
I think it was as stressful as you guys have it now.
We were far more nihilistic than
As we approach a new decade of the 21st century, it's hard to deny that times are changing. Life is complicated. Politics are increasingly sectional, the environment and resources are being depleted faster than we can make up for it, and rapidly evolving technology developed to ease our lives makes society even more complex. Despite all of this, people are more connected than ever before, with new inventions increasing the efficiency and pace of daily life and contributing to the further diversification of interests and actions as we steer away from a homogeneous American culture to a nation of diverse interests and lifestyles. As another generation begins to reach maturity and approaches adulthood, all inquisitive and judging eyes turn on these new members of society, who are next in line to inherit the world. But all of this change and progression of society begs the question, are we, the generations, truly that different? And if so, how did this happen? Where did it all begin? Baby boomers, born in between 1946 and 1964, are mainly the grandmothers and grandfathers of millennials and Gen Z. This generation saw the birth of 76 million babies over a span of only 18 years and a booming post-World War II economy with a gross national product nearly 2 times its normal value and home ownership among Americans exceeding 60%. This generation experienced life during the Civil Rights Movement, with the United States transitioning into an era with heightened demand for equal rights and opportunities for minorities. According to research done by Dr. Alexis Abramson, baby boomers are characterized by a vested interest in a professional outlook and a strong sense of self in their employment status. These values showed in the workplace, as they were and are still anxious to demonstrate responsibility and please their employers. As they reached adulthood, this generation's less traditional style of parenting and home life greatly influenced the outcome of Generation X, whether it be their values or overall lifestyle choices. Nicknamed the Latchkey Generation, much of Generation X was exposed to divorce and separation due to working parents from an early age and a more lax acceptance of non-traditional home styles, as the concept of the nuclear family began fading away. These skeptics grew up through the Cold War, experiencing the fall of the Berlin Wall, the disintegration of communism, and are now largely middle-aged with grown children and in the pinnacle of their careers. Growing up in a tense political climate with proxy wars and a recession, this generation is characterized as more cynical, yet self-sufficient, and somewhat technologically adept. Focused on a more life-work balance rather than following a straight and narrow path of corporate America, Gen Xers tend to enjoy the finer things in life, which can be seen in their parenting choices, transferring completely new outlooks on life for their children, millennials and Gen Z. Nicknamed the I Generation, the kids and teens of Generation Z were born between 1995 and 2010, making them the students of today. This group is the first generation to not remember the attacks on 9/11, but have witnessed the legalization of gay marriage, the election of America's first African American president, and much more. During the past decade, when Generation Z were in their adolescent or preteen years, the second biggest economic crisis in the United States affected the lives of Gen Z's parents, therefore transforming their outlooks on the socio-economic climate. A recent Cassandra report found that fully 90% of Gen Zers will make sure their parents feel a planned purchase is affordable before going ahead with it. Schooling has gotten increasingly competitive and challenging for the kids of this generation, with higher reported stress levels and mental illness than ever before. Despite this, statistically, Gen Z is the most diverse and highest educated generation to date, according to the Pew Research Center. Gen Z is growing up with constant changes, being the first generation to grow up completely reliant on technology. With a variety of different interests because of the evolving technology and the new open-minded perspective, the kids of Gen Z are known as the first truly global generation. Each generation has clearly been shaped by varying events, leading to strong dividing cultural differences between each age group. But what does this mean for the future? Generation Z is often criticized for having it too easy, with Gen Xers and baby boomers alike comparing life now to how they had it when they were growing up. Do participation trophies and a severe dependence on technology have the capability to wreck a generation? What does this difference mean for the future?
My name is Marilyn Major Tuckman, and I am 73 years old. I am retired, living with my husband.
What do you think is a pivotal event or a certain kind of music or that defines your generation?
Well, Elvis, rock and roll, Elvis Presley, the Beatles. Where I was brought up and lived in Atlanta, it was very segregated. I was a teenager and I saw two water fountains, and one said white and one said colored. And it just struck me as so wrong. I had to ask somebody why. There was the fight for integration, and that was a big thing also. My senior year, we had two black students and one. There were, National Guard on the steps and in front of the schools and everything. Yeah, it was no big deal to us.
Yeah, how do you feel about other generations?
I think your generation is much smarter and more challenged than my generation was. My generation was very innocent. My mother's and father's word was the law. You did not cross them.
Do you see that sort of discipline and respect with parents like that today? Or do you think
Oh no. If we ever got in trouble with school, it was your fault, no questions asked. You can't say, well, the teacher, I don't want to hear about the teacher, I just want to hear about you.
So how do you feel about the dynamic of a parent and child with Gen Z and Gen Xers?
I don't like the disrespect for teachers and for my generation.
How do you feel that technology has changed the way that teens nowadays act versus how you grew up?
Oh, golly. So much. Social media, I think, has brought bullying much more to the surface, whereas you had to say it to our face when we were growing up.
When you were in school, did you ever feel pressured to go to college?
My parents were very old-fashioned. They did not think that girls needed to go to college because you were just going to get married. Well, and at the time, all girls really could be a teacher, you could be a nurse, or you could be a secretary. Anything else, you really had to fight your way into it, and you were really given a hard time by the male students because they didn't think you belonged there.
Do you see this generation lacking any necessary qualities
to communicate? They don't talk to each other or write letters. I think that a lot of children in your generation, their parents go and complain that if I try to tell a parent that little Johnny, talked back to me or cussed me out and all that, oh, he wouldn't do that. You need to know that there are going to be consequences for what you do.
My name is Scott Ackerman. I'm 54 years old and I'm Generation X.
What do you think your generation was most shaped by?
I would probably say music, which I think we all kind of had followers and we followed the music and go out to discos and places to dance and meet people. So I don't see that too much now, but I definitely saw that back in my day.
How do you think your generation differs from your children's generations?
Music, we met friends and we met new relationships out at, I think your generation, you could meet people online, you could meet people on social media. That's the only way we ever met people was to go out, and that's what you did. So I think our communication skills probably in my generation are, I'll say, a little bit better than the ones presently.
How was your school life? Were there APs and honors classes? Did you have free time?
School life, we had advanced classes. We didn't have AP but we had advanced classes. I think it was as stressful as you guys have it now. It's just different. We still had pressure, bullies back then. We had to perform. I think we had a lot more, at least me, I had a lot more extracurricular activities. I was involved in track and cross country and all that, so, it was busy. When you look at my generation and I look at your generation, I see lacking social skills. But we were book smart. You worked hard to do what you had to do. But again, I still think no matter what generation we're in, we still need to learn how to talk to people. We still need to learn how to communicate properly. And I think we respected our parents, I'll just say much more than this generation respects the parents. If we did something wrong, you knew you were getting in trouble. And it wasn't by timeout or taking away your car keys, it was you would get whooped in your butt. I just don't know if they understand the word of respect and what it takes to really work hard and earn what you have and not have everything given to you.
My name is Morgan. I'm 18. I am Gen Z and I am a student. I think our generation has been shaped a lot by the kind of very outspoken, a lot of people are very outspoken about their political views now, and there's a lot of protests and kind of various social issues that a lot of people seem to be getting involved in. I know, but I also feel like we went through a lot of little things as opposed to one big thing. I mean, we're definitely the generation of school shootings, which are, too close together. Old people? I mean, so grandparents? I like my grandparents. They're great. My grandma is super involved in all political functions, and some people should, keep their mouths shut that are baby boomers, and that's what I have to say about that.
So do you think our age and generations and the conditions under which we grew up affected our political orientation and how we feel about life?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're far more nihilistic than previous generations. We definitely have a very intense attitude where we kind of joke about things that are really serious.
What do you do when you're not at school?
I dance and work at Fleetwood Dance Theater most days after school. I'm also involved in a youth group called BBYO, which I love very much, and I teach Hebrew school on the weekends at my synagogue.
How do you think a college experience and going from high school to college and that transition differs now from how it was?
The application process is so much more rigorous. I mean, you have to pretty much do everything but cure cancer to get into college. I mean, you have to have 4.0, great scores, amazing extracurriculars, amazing essays. So there's higher expectations about college now than there were then.
After examining the backgrounds of the generations and the lives of three representatives of different ages, the opinions and critiques each generation has of each other have become apparent. Although expectations may be higher and school is increasingly difficult, Generation Z can't communicate. They are incredibly sensitive and have a hard time demonstrating respect towards their elders, while at the same time heavily relying on support and aid from their parents.
I'll tell you what is fair.
Whether sourced from the increasing role in technology or coddling parents, Generation Z is often viewed as a group of Tide Pod eaters who have yet to learn what life is truly like in the real world, and are by no means capable of inheriting the world. The criticism may paint a bleak picture for the future of society, but Generation Z in reality is far more than the I generation obsessed with silly TikToks, Vines, or YouTube. Each generation grew up with new technologies their predecessors didn't have access to, fostering criticism from their elders for their lack of respect or readiness to grow up, and the Generation Z conflict is only another manifestation of this phenomenon. Gen Z, while being irresponsible, social media obsessed teenagers, is also a political and social force to be reckoned with, as the young leaders of today have already made great strides in issues such as climate change and racial and gender equality, utilizing the political system to make peaceful demonstrations to communicate their beliefs, and even using technology as a medium to raise awareness for issues they are passionate about. Outcry for change has never been heard from such forceful young voices on such a large scale as it is today. These voices plead for technological development, groundbreaking discoveries, pushes for equality, and these voices say that we are Gen Z and we are ready to take on the world.